Hey, uncensored, unofficial, and uncut. It's the sixth round. I'm Grayson Doritas. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm going to give you a quick Bellator 42 preview show. Go over my picks and predictions, as well as a little bit of MMA news. And hey, go throw in some Follow Fridays for Twitter todays too. That's something new I'm going to be trying on here. Instead of cranking out, 15 consecutive tweets and clogging up the tubes on the internet, I'll just do it here. So if you're tuning in, appreciate it. Also going to be throwing this video up on YouTube either this evening or tomorrow morning. So if you can't catch a live broadcast right now, you'll be able to see the picks on YouTube tomorrow, and I'll link you on Twitter as well as Facebook on Saturday morning, about a few hours before the show. Hopefully get it up about 8 or 10 hours before Bellator kicks off tomorrow. So let's start off with some top MMA news for the week. Mayhem Miller signed with the UFC. This comes via MMAfighting.com, and I found this to be a little interesting because you're starting to see the effect of some of these guys that are in the middleweight division in Strikeforce, which is one of their kind of really thin divisions. You take a look at lightweight, they've got fights for guys like Gill, Melendez there. They've got fights for Diaz, although they're running out on that front at welterweight. But 185 has been kind of just thin from the get-go with those guys. And, Kung Lee's kind of disappeared. Shamrock retired. Diaz is fighting more at 170 now, kind of his natural weight class. And so you got a guy, Jake Shields even now is in the UFC, who incidentally fought Mayhem Miller and got a victory there over Mayhem. But Miller is a guy that said that he, a few months back, did not really have any interest in getting back into the UFC. He previously fought in the UFC several years back, and was doing his thing with MTV, and thought that Strikeforce would be a good fit for him, and it was. Allowed him to go do some other things. There's more flexibility in the contract there, but now that Zuffa's bought Strikeforce and owns that promotion, I think you're going to start seeing a few more of these guys come that have had a long layoff, looking for fights, having trouble getting matched up with guys in Strikeforce, perhaps coming into the UFC. Also, Rich Franklin meets Little Nog at UFC 133. This comes via the UFC's Twitter account. That's an interesting light heavyweight fight right there. Little Nog in need of a win. Rich Franklin as well, coming off the Forrest Griffin loss. Franklin a little bit smaller, 205. Little Nog, of course, just good everywhere. Perhaps a little bit underwhelming on his past couple fights, but fought some tough wrestlers, which he has some trouble with on the ground. Perhaps just something that he'll need to work on coming into this fight. But in any case, that's a great matchup there. Also at 133 via ESPN, Vitor Belfort, who most recently lost to Anderson Silva in a title fight in the middleweight division, will meet Yoshihiro Sexyama Akiyama. Like I said, that'll be also at UFC 133. So I like that fight. I think it's good timing for both guys. Akiyama was supposed to fight recently, however, the damage or natural disaster damage in Japan prevented him from doing so and getting his training right and making the trip to the States for that fight. So he'll be back in action, and he's also been a guy that's been a bit underwhelming since coming to the UFC. Lost his last fight and is looking to rebound. So hey, you got Vitor Belfort, who's got amazing hands, and you've got Yoshihiro Akiyama with incredible judo. It could make for a very exciting fight. I think it's going to be one that could produce a guy back up into the kind of contender status because it's looking a little thin at middleweight, especially with Marquardt dropping down to 170. Also, all UFC 129 prelims next weekend will be aired for free on Facebook. I believe that's 5 prelim fights, and you're going to get to see them all. Just go ahead and like the UFC on Facebook and tune in by going to their Facebook page on Saturday evening, next Saturday evening rather, and go ahead and click on the live video link on their Facebook page, which will load up the UFC player for you, and you'll be able to check out all of the prelim fights. That's really cool. I like that they're doing this. They're utilizing social media and going where the eyeballs are, perhaps before the fights. Guys are getting online and trying to check out these prelim fights because you previously, as of a few months ago, couldn't really get a lot of the prelim action. However, now that they're adding those fights on Spike, and the kind of 2, 3, perhaps 4 prelim fights, depending on how long they go, have been airing on Spike for about anywhere between maybe half to 3/4 of the pay-per-view events. And so now we get to see all of them, more fights. More excitement is going to make for a bigger build-up to the pay-per-view starting. So good for them, good for us. I like that. So as I said at the top, right here, Bellator 42 is this weekend, and it's gonna be an interesting card. There's not a lot of big names on there per se, but you got a guy in Richard Hale that's got some excitement coming in, off of his previous performance versus DJ Linderman. That's going to be a light heavyweight tournament semifinal fight. Josh Orocho versus Ronnie Mann. Mann's just incredibly athletic. I've got it going for him on that fight. So that could be a high-paced fight right there. Also, Tim Carpenter facing up against Christian Mpumbu. That's another light heavyweight tournament semifinal fight. You also have Luis Nogueira versus Jared Spoon, and that will round out the main card. For preliminary card, Owen Evinger versus Brandon Shelton, Chris Bell versus Jared Hess. Good fight right there. Look out for that one to possibly make the MTV2 broadcast. Shane Howell versus Mark Oshiro, and Chris Guillen versus Mark Olata. So pretty good amount of fights right there. They've had a little bit of a decline in the ratings on MTV2, and that could be attributed to perhaps not a whole ton of big names in the past few weeks, but I like what they're doing, and I think that if they continue on the path that they're going with in terms of promoting these guys through a season up into a big fight and then using them for super fights afterward, it'll work out for them, and perhaps the ratings will increase. So once again, that's coming at you tomorrow evening. Weigh-ins were tonight, and I believe all made weight. That'll be airing on MTV2. Check your local listings. Check your local listings, as Matt Laptu would say, from the most recent 6th Round podcast. And that's going to be taking place in Oklahoma from the Lucky Star Casino. Now, my picks for this event, I did the main card, and I've got Richard Hale getting the best of DJ Linderman. I'm going to take Hale by submission in that one. For Orocho versus Mann, I'm going to go with Mann by TKO. I think he's just incredibly athletic. He's got the power to get it done, so I'll take Mann in that one. For Tim Carpenter, he's going to be going up against Christian Mpumbu. Like I said, I've got Mpumbu by decision. I think that he'll be able to edge him out in certain areas of the fight and probably get a unanimous decision there. And then for the last fight of the main card with Nogueira versus Spoon, I'm going to go with Nogueira. I think his training and his team is going to make the difference in that fight. I also said that I would go ahead and do Twitter Follow Friday on here. I haven't done one in a little while. It's been a minute, as the cool kids say. But I'm going to go ahead and crack this out on the podcast here. So I'm just going to run down the list, hear your name. I appreciate you getting at me on Twitter and interacting with me during the week. And once again, you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/6thround. That's twitter.com/6round. Welcome you to add me, tweet me, message me, however you like, interact. Let me know your thoughts on the show, MMA, and just sports in general. And I'm always on there. You can find me, day and night. I'll get back to you. It's a great way for me to stay in touch with folks. And of course, you can find all your MMA news just by logging on. 30 seconds later, you're completely caught up in a whole day's worth of what's going on in the world of MMA. So, not just from myself, of course. I'm talking about the entire Twitter sphere. So, Local Adam from Texas, Cody Plax, Jan Sanchez, Metric Julie, Jada the Rod, Epic Armor, Young Lappy, Fairfax, Chris Elliott, 55, another Northern Virginia resident, MMA Gospel Gary, M3 MMA, and of course, my man, Choku from across the pond. I'd like to also just segue into a little bit of a forgotten fight here. We've been talking a lot about UFC 129 coming up next weekend, and I'll do a little segment called Forgotten Fight here. And it's Randy Couture versus Big Nog. This is a forgotten fight. Nobody really talks about this fight. It's one of my favorites from 2009. It was a great back-and-forth battle. And on August 29, 2009, Randy Couture met another MMA legend in Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. At UFC 102, these two men faced off in a 3-round battle, which resulted in a thrilling fight ending in a victory for Big Nog. The loss was Randy's second in a row after having previously fallen short to powerhouse Brock Lesnar at heavyweight. And following the back and forth bout with Big Nog, Randy got back in the win column, reeling off 3 straight victories over Brandon Vera, Mark Coleman, and loudmouth boxer James Toney. The Natural, as he's known to the world over, will be back in action, like I said, at UFC 129 next Saturday for what he said will likely be his last time out in the cage once he squares up with former light heavyweight champ, co-former light heavyweight champ, Lyoto the Dragon Machida. Once again, I said you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/6thround. That's twitter.com/6round. Also, check out the site. We're going to do about, a couple posts a day, like we've been doing. Pick some predictions before every big fight. Of course, adding some new video, like we're doing right here. Like I said, I'll be posting this to YouTube as well as other podcasts and picks and predictions posts. So getting more into the multimedia aspect on the site, and not only just doing audio as I've been doing for the past several months, but doing the live video as well as putting those recordings up afterward for everybody in case they're not catching the Ustream stream when I'm actually on here live. So you can find the site at www.6th-round.com. That's www.6th-round.com. And if you want to go check out the Bellator 42 picks, as well as some UFC 129 info leading up to the fight between now and next Saturday, I'll have that on there. Also, trying to get a little bit of Facebook action going on, so you can find a link to that on the site as well. Welcome you to like the site on there and spread the word. So quick show today, like I said. Appreciate you tuning in or checking this on YouTube if you're viewing the video afterwards. Over and out. This is Grayson Doritas for the 6th round.